Well, hello there and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Casey and I'm the designer behind the indie sewing pattern company, Pattern Scout. I've had quite a few questions lately about where and how I find my fabric. Also, a few of you have lamented that it's really hard to find good fabric, and I think that depends largely on where and how you shop for fabric. So in today's video, I'm gonna go over all of my strategies for doing just that, for finding the perfect fabric for your project. I've included chapters in the description below, as well as links to all of the resources that I'm going to be talking about in this video, so be sure to check those out. My first set of tips is all about getting familiar with different fabric types, and I used to sew mostly like home goods and accessories and that kind of thing, but garment sewing requires a different type of fabric in general. So it took me a little while to kind of get familiar with fabrics and feel more comfortable ordering fabrics online, for example, and even buying fabrics in stores. When I first started sewing my own clothing, I was definitely much more impulsive with my fabric purchases and bought some kind of crazy looking fabrics and fabrics that were not necessarily in the colors that I typically wear or were kind of crazier prints, because they were definitely beautiful fabrics. In the long run, they weren't really fabrics that I was going to wear and would feel comfortable wearing on a regular basis. But I learned what I liked and what felt good to wear. And I think it just took a little bit of trial and error to get to that point. But I definitely think it's okay to make a few mistakes when you are first getting started with garment sewing and selecting fabrics. If you see a fabric that speaks to you, give it a shot. See if you like it. You may surprise yourself, but don't beat yourself up if it turns out not to be quite the right fabric for you. Another tip is to study your store-bought or ready-to-wear items. So ready-to-wear is a term that you'll hear a lot in the sewing community, and it'll also be abbreviated with the acronym RTW, and that just means ready-to-wear or store-bought clothing. But if you have a garment that you love and you love the way the fabric feels against your skin, look at the fabric label, see what the fiber content is, and that's a really great way to learn kind of what fabrics you might be more drawn to over others. Sewing patterns include fabric recommendations, and it's always a good idea to follow those. You may also be introduced to fabrics you haven't heard of or tried before, and it also gives you a really good idea of the pattern designer's intent for the garment and the type of fabric that the garment was designed for. A lot of times, different fabrics will kind of have a different drape and will give the garment a different style altogether depending on how the fabric lays on your body, so you're more likely to have an outcome that looks like the picture on the pattern package. I used to buy fabric samples for nearly every new fabric that I wanted to try, and I was doing this even before I was sewing garments. Back when I was sewing home goods and accessories, I always would buy fabric samples first just to make sure that I liked the fabric before I invested more money and bought more yardage, because I didn't want to get the fabric and then end up not using it. This is especially crucial when you're shopping online for fabric, because sometimes the online photographs and colors and even the descriptions can be a little bit deceiving. So I highly recommend buying fabric samples, and most, if not all, websites allow you to buy fabric samples. And they're usually pretty cheap and sometimes free, so definitely do that. Now, it definitely requires a little extra patience to buy samples, wait for them to come in the mail, and then decide to make a purchase. But I did this a lot when I first started sewing garments, and now I have a whole box full of samples that I can refer to if I ever need a refresher on the characteristics of a fabric that I'm thinking of using. One resource that I found extremely helpful for this was dharmatrading.com. Dharma Trading is a website that has fabrics available for dyeing, and they have a lot of kind of tie dyeing and fabric dyeing supplies and materials and that sort of thing. But they have sample packs of fabrics, and I bought a few of these sample packs actually. This has been a few years ago, but those sample packs became so useful for understanding so many different types of fabrics. I still refer to those samples quite a lot. So over time, I built up a little bit of a sample library that I can constantly refer to. And when in doubt, Google that stuff. Whenever I am unsure about a fabric description, I'll just Google it to see if I can get a little bit more detailed description of the fabric, and usually garments, like ready-to-wear garments that are made out of that fabric, will also come up in my search results, so I can kind of see the fabric on human bodies and understand the way that the fabric behaves a little bit better. Another thing that you'll need to know about fabric when you are starting a project is whether it is meant to be made out of a woven or a knit. Wovens are characterized by vertical and horizontal threads, also known as warp and weft threads, that are interlaced together. Wovens are typically non-stretch fabrics unless the fabric includes a stretch fiber such as spandex or lycra. So for example, a cotton denim with spandex. In that case, the fabric is called a stretch woven. Stretch wovens are very common for garments like pants and jeans because they offer a little bit of structure with a little bit of stretch. Knits are characterized by yarns or threads that are looped together, giving the fabric a little bit of stretch usually, and this makes a knit very comfortable to wear and ideal for active wear. Another thing to keep in mind when purchasing fabric is whether it is a natural fiber or a synthetic fiber or some combination of those. I typically go for woven fabrics that are in a natural fiber. So for example, cottons and linens, because those are generally easier to work with. They wear really well, they're very comfortable, and they're very durable. I also really love to wear rayon and lyocell and viscose, which are considered semi-synthetic fabrics, because while they are derived from plant materials, that material goes through a pretty involved engineering process during manufacturing to turn those fibers into a really soft, silky fiber. And many times I'll buy fabrics that have a blended fiber content, such as a viscose linen. These types of fabrics have a very beautiful drape and are also very comfortable to wear, which is what draws me to them. Occasionally, I will also buy synthetic fabrics, such as polyester, and that just depends on the project that I'm working on or the way that the fabric feels against my skin. So I don't totally rule those out, but I am really picky about the polyester fabrics I buy, and I do try to find polyester fabrics that are either recycled or are designer dead stock fabrics when I can. And many knit fabrics have a high synthetic content, which gives them the stretch and recovery that makes them so comfortable to wear for things like leggings and t-shirts. But not all knits have synthetic content, but most do. Okay, so now on to the most popular question I've been getting lately: where do I find my fabric? Like I mentioned before, a few of you have lamented about how hard it is to find really nice fabrics, and I think it really depends heavily on where and how you shop for fabric. I prefer to shop in person when I can, but I do find the most variety when shopping online. And especially if I have a project where I have a very specific idea of what I want, I will just go online and start looking, because I know what to search for, and I know I'll have a higher likelihood of finding it online than I will if I just kind of take a chance and go to a store. But shopping online does require a little bit more patience and a little bit more research, and you also have to wait for the fabric to arrive, which can be kind of hard to do. I am based in the US, so I shop at my local Joann Fabrics quite a lot. I'm there sometimes once a week, sometimes more, sometimes less, but I do find that they have a nice selection of linens and cottons and kind of knit basics, and I actually buy most of my linen at Joann Fabrics. However, I am often disappointed in their prints. So they have a lot of like what they classify as silky fabrics, and those are usually polyester, which I don't love, and I found better prints in other places. Occasionally, I will find something really special there that's in a print that I really love, so I just have to kind of go and dig. So I usually stick to the basics at Joann. I also buy a lot of my notions at Joann, and my thread, they carry the Gutermann thread that I love, but if I need something a little bit more specific or a little bit more specialty, I will shop on wawak.com. I love shopping there. They have really fast shipping, and I do get a lot of specialty notions there and specialty thread, and I also prefer to buy my zippers through Wawak. There's also a small locally owned shop here in East Lansing called Seams Fabric, and they actually have a pretty good selection of some really nice designer fabrics at really, honestly, pretty reasonable prices. I'm always kind of floored at their prices when I go in there. I also really enjoy digging through their vintage and thrifted and salvaged button collection. So I have found a lot of buttons there. Occasionally I'll travel to other fabric stores in the region if I don't find what I need locally, or if I just want to take a little field trip. And I'll also look for fabric stores when I travel. Fields Fabrics is a regionally owned fabric store located in Grand Rapids, Michigan. That's about an hour away from me, and I'll go there sometimes. They have a pretty big selection of stuff. I don't always find what I'm looking for there, but it is fun to kind of pop in there and look around. I do get a little overwhelmed with their selection sometimes, but yeah, I'll check out Fields Fabrics when I can. I also recently had a chance to check out Haberman's in Clawson, Michigan, which is outside of Detroit, on the recommendation of a viewer, so thank you for the recommendation. I did find some fabric there that I'm really happy with. They had a really nice selection, and they had a beautiful selection of special occasion fabrics that I cannot get my mind off of. I may have to actually go back and get a fabric that I saw there that I really loved, and I kind of second guessed myself. Anyhow, I really enjoyed shopping there. The people there were fantastic, really nice. I also met a fellow YouTuber, hello Jenny, and really enjoyed chatting with her about being here on YouTube. And anyway, it was really cool to meet somebody in real life that is also on this platform. And when I can't find what I need locally or regionally, I will shop online, like I mentioned before. And right now, the places that I usually go to first for shopping online are Blackbird Fabrics, Measure Fabric, Cali Fabrics, Mood Fabrics, and Fabric.com. I've also had some luck finding fabric on Etsy, but I find that I really need to know what I'm looking for so I can narrow the search results down, because you do get a lot of results on Etsy and it's a lot to weed through, but I have had a little bit of luck finding fabrics there. Although I can't remember any of the fabric shops that I have found fabric from there right now. So Blackbird Fabrics is a Canadian-based fabric store, and they have a really nice big selection of fabrics. I really love their color selection. I feel like they do a great job of curating their collections, and they are constantly bringing out new fabrics. So I really enjoy going on there and browsing around. Even if I don't buy anything, I'm actually on their website quite a lot. And their fabrics are very well categorized. Their website is very easy to navigate. So it's just an enjoyable experience to shop on their website. Measure Fabric is based in Savannah, Georgia, and they are a really great fabric store. I love getting stuff from Measure Fabric. They carry mostly, maybe all of their fabrics are designer dead stock fabrics. And designer dead stock is just luxury fabric that was produced for a clothing designer that was unused and may otherwise be discarded by the designer. So a fabric shop can then purchase those fabric overstocks basically and sell them to us at usually really great prices. Some of my favorite pieces were made from the fabrics that I got there, and Maria does a really good job of curating seasonal collections and always has new stuff coming out, so definitely check them out. I love their fabrics. Cali Fabrics is another fabric store. They're based in California, and they have a lot of designer dead stock fabrics as well. I found a lot of knits and like stretch denims there that I've really been happy with, so definitely check them out, and their prices are really reasonable. I've always found good deals on their fabric. Fabric.com and moodfabrics.com both have extensive fabric collections. It can be quite overwhelming, and I usually only shop on those websites when I know exactly what I'm looking for, and I can be very specific about what I'm searching for on their website. I hardly ever go there just to browse because there's just like, it's a lot. There's so much kind of coming at you, but you can find just about anything you need for just about any project you can think of on these websites. Okay, now that we know where we want to buy our fabrics, I'm going to talk a little bit about shopping tips and ways to kind of, center yourself when you start your fabric purchasing journey. When I'm shopping in person, I touch everything. I am picking up the fabric, I'm unrolling it from the bolt a little bit, I'm kind of seeing how much transparency it has, I'm tugging on it to see how much stretch it has. I really want to see what the drape is like and feel how heavy the fabric is, those types of things. So I definitely touch everything. I take my time. I'll put the fabric in my cart. I'll kind of walk around with it a little bit and think about it and look at it. And yeah, I also try to come prepared with a plan, even if it's just a loose idea of the types of projects that I'm buying fabric for, because that helps me avoid overwhelm. It helps me avoid impulse purchases, which, don't get me wrong, I definitely engage in plenty of impulse fabric shopping. But I usually like to have some sort of plan so that I'm not just like going in there blind and buying up a bunch of fabric that might just sit in my stash for months or years. I'm also not afraid to ask for help if I don't know where to find the fabric I'm looking for, or even if I don't know exactly what type of fabric I'm looking for. People are usually very friendly and very willing to help you out. If you're shopping online, you can email the fabric shop and ask them questions. I've definitely done that before, and I've always gotten really friendly responses that have been very helpful. You also want to read the fabric descriptions thoroughly, either on the bolt label when you're in the store or when you are shopping online in the product descriptions. The things you want to be looking for are fiber content, the weight of the fabric, and the width of the fabric. And the width of the fabric is especially important when deciding on how much yardage you're gonna need for your project. And most patterns also will tell you how much yardage you need based on the width of the fabric that you're going to buy. Another thing to keep in mind when shopping online is that most fabric online is priced by the half yard. So you wanna make sure that you're buying enough yardage. Sometimes it can be a little deceiving. You think you're buying 3 yards and you're only buying 1.5 yards. So definitely watch out for that. Whenever I tell people that I sew my own clothing, I think that they think that it is cheaper to sew my own clothing, and it is definitely not. Fabric can be very expensive, and to save money, I'll sign up for email lists and coupons and apps, anything I can do to save a little bit of money on my fabric. When I go to Joann Fabrics, I am armed with all of my coupons. I get coupons in my email, I get coupons on the app, and I get coupons in the mail. So I don't go to Joann without coupons, and I'm not playing when it comes to saving money on some fabric. And lastly, you can also save money by hunting for fabric at your local thrift stores. Whenever I go to the thrift store, store, I always see if they have any fabric. I have one thrift store in particular here in Lansing that always has fabric of some sort, but usually it's a little hit or miss. And a lot of times you can also hit up the bed linens section and find sheets and pillowcases and curtains that you can also make garments out of. And I've mostly found fabrics that would work best for test garments, but occasionally I will find a gem. Okay, I think that wraps it up. I hope this was helpful. If you enjoyed this video and you would like to see more from me, please be sure to subscribe and hit that little bell icon. That way you'll be notified when I release new videos in the future. And if you would like to share your favorite places to buy fabric online or even locally, leave a comment below and let us know. I'm sure that other people would find that very helpful. I know I would find it very helpful, so I'm always looking for new places to search for fabric. If you have any additional tips for buying fabric, I'd love to hear them. And yeah, I think that is all I have for you today. I will see you in the next video. Bye.